but in large part, it's not. It's an offense that is probably the worst in the league right now. It's absolutely killing them. So I am very surprised at what's going on in Death Valley right now for sure.
Okay, so Tony Elliott is taking a lot of the criticism, and Dabo Swinney has stood up for Tony, and I know Tony from my time there, and a super nice guy, is an engineer at Michelin, has led Clemson to 2 national titles. Yes, Jeff Scott's at South Florida. I mean, all of those storylines that we all know about this team. But you as a former running back, and I don't believe you've watched the 22 on every play that Clemson's played this year. I know you got a lot going on, but I mean, do you see anything that you could just pinpoint and say, Swanee, that's the biggest problem that Clemson's got right now?
I think right now it's confidence, which is not a tangible thing, but it is a big issue for Clemson's offense. And look, it's multiple places. I think the biggest one, and this is biggest because it's relative to the other ones, but the offensive line is always going to be the biggest issue when you have issues on the offensive line. They have rotated the interior of that offensive line a number of times, in particular left guard, because Marcus Tate, as talented as he's been, has struggled at times. So they've had to try and look for different solutions. They've put in Paul
Paul
Teo.
Teo, yeah.
They've put in they've shuffled a number of guys. Can't remember who else they put in because honestly I don't really pay that much attention to who's rotating at left guard until left guard becomes an issue.
Yeah.
But the offensive line is always an issue. I think there is a leadership issue on the offensive side of the football. I think, and I've been on teams where you lose significant production. I never lost to Trevor Lawrence and a Travis Etienne because we didn't have those guys, but we did have a Jonathan Dwyer and a Bebe Thomas. A first-round receiver and a first-round talent at running back that, for multiple reasons did not end up being a first-rounder. But we did have those type guys. When those guys leave, the void is substantial. And there's sort of a shock when you walk in and, you're in a tough game where in 2009, those are situations where we throw it up to Bebe, or those are situations where we hand it off to Dwyer. And you're looking around, it's like, all right, I mean, I guess we could throw it up to Stephen Hill, but I don't think he's going to do that. And well, I guess we can hand it to David Sims, but I don't think he's going to do that. Like, so it erodes your confidence, and you're sort of looking around for people to make a play. And the guys that are looked to be those guys are not making plays. You're relying on a young Will Shipley and a young DJ Uiagalelei and a Justin Ross that does not look like he did when he left. And so there's just multiple things that I think are going on. They all, to me, lead back to confidence. And, Robert Griffin III was harsh on Tony Elliott's play calling and the overall design of the offense. And look, they came out and said, hey, we're running the same stuff North Carolina's running. And the answer is kind of, but you're not running it in the same ways. And Lawton, that's been maybe not a criticism, but an observation that a number of people, including myself, have had for at least 5 years about Clemson. The offense has never been innovative or complicated. It's just you had better players. And now it's a question on if you still have better players, but it's a question because those guys aren't playing like it.
He's on Twitter at Roddy Jones 20. I made the comparison 2 weeks ago after the Georgia Tech game. And maybe I mentioned it to you last week. Clemson, to a degree, has reminded me of the Redcoats in the British Army when they were fighting, the colonists, and they just thought you were going to line up in the field and outman you and outshoot you. And unfortunately, the colonists had different ideas. And it feels like Clemson's offense is that. Like, they feel like they could go through the regular season, just being Clemson, just rolling it out there. I mean, there's very little motion. Like, I went back and watched it. I mean, it was only 46 plays of offense, only 6 in the third quarter. It was ridiculous. And I went back and watched it. And look, I've never been an offensive coordinator outside of playing Madden and things like that. But I know even on that game, like, I have guys that I motion to find out what kind of coverage I'm facing. And Clemson, for a large part of that game, did none of that. Now, I don't know how effective it is, but Roddy, I feel like it would be. It just gives you something, doesn't it?
Yes, it certainly does. And it at least creates a thought in the defense's mind when you change the picture. And look, Clemson has done that in the past. Amari Rogers would motion all the time. Travis Etienne would motion all the time. And for whatever reason, they're not doing it this year. Why? Your guess is as good as mine. Do they not think the guys can handle it? Do they not think it's effective? Do they not have the pieces? I don't know, but it's hard to watch Clemson on offense, and it has been hard to watch them. This statement stands for not just this year, but previously. It's hard to watch Clemson on offense and think this is a coaching staff that is working really hard to create conflicts for defenses in every way possible. It's a coaching staff that relies on execution and better players because it's not all that complicated. The picture that you get pre-snap is generally what you're going to get at the snap. I've got Virginia this week, and it's allowed me to dive into Virginia. And Virginia is going to give you about 800 different formations, 75 different plays, and like guys wearing number 98 and 99 lining up on offense all over the place. And I'm not saying Clemson needs to do that, but there's sort of a middle ground where you're using shifts and motions and you're using personnel groupings to really help the quarterback figure out, and then tempo, which Clemson can go fast, but they've never been a really fast tempo team all the time. Teams with less resources have to do that stuff. And when you see teams with more resources do that stuff, Alabama, you see what it produces on offense. Like Alabama evolved to that under Lane Kiffin and then Steve Sarkisian, and now under Bill O'Brien, and they are the premier offense over the last 5 years in the country. Why? Because they've got the resources and they have worked to find every single advantage they can from shifts, formation, and personnel. And you just don't see that from Clemson.
No, I think you make a great point. Again, he's on Twitter at Roddy Jones 20, Sirius XM, the ACC network. Again, talking a little bit about this Clemson Tiger team. So surprising to see them playing from behind, not just nationally, but in the ACC. They dropped to number 25 in the AP poll, number 19 in the coaches poll. Roddy, I mean, if they don't get going this weekend against this Boston College team, look, I don't know when the bleeding stops, to be honest with you, for this Clemson team. I mean, this is a Boston College program that if they had Jacoby, their starting quarterback, I'd be highly concerned. I'm shocked Clemson's a 15-point favorite. Roddy, they haven't scored 14 points against Power 5 opponents in regulation yet this year. I mean,
right.
What's this game going to look like in your opinion?
If for anybody who's listening, I do not think Boston College loses by more than 16 points or 15 points, whatever the line is, because you're right. Like,
yeah,
the question to me becomes, do you think Clemson puts up 30? And there's nothing to suggest so far this season that this is a Clemson team that's going to go out against Boston College, a team that is fundamentally sound, a team that is going to play their tails off, a team that played Clemson close a year ago, so has that sort of confidence. There's nothing to suggest that Clemson's going to go out and put up 30 other than talent. Like, and we've been saying talent for Miami and Florida State for so long that like talent's just not going to do it for me. Now, can they put it together? Sure. We are going to hold out hope all year that, hey, they might be able to figure it out. But this is a bad offense, that a significant improvement for this offense would be getting to average. As you said, like, this is an offense that had the ball for 46 plays. Go back and look. I think it was 9 of like the 12 drives, not including end of half. 9 of the 12 drives that they had were 4 plays or less. Yeah. So either going 3 and out, or you're getting a first down and then going 3 and out. So it is mind-boggling where this offense has been. Boston College, again, is going to come in and play with a lot of confidence. They've run the ball better. Dennis Grosel is going to be a guy that's not afraid to throw the football. And I say that like he's got a little bit of a gunslinger in him. He'll throw it to the other team some. So maybe Clemson can pick him off a couple of times. But this is a Boston College team playing with a lot of confidence, and that is a dangerous place to be for a Clemson team that is not playing with confidence. And quite honestly, is not playing at confidence in the most important position and is now banged up at the place where they were the strongest coming into the year, and that's the defensive line.
I think it's worse that they're at home this weekend, Roddy. I'll be honest with you, because I think if they struggle out of the gates, the Boo Birds and the fans, I mean, they are going to – it's incredible because very few programs in my and your lifetime have ever had the success that Clemson's had during this run. And I am flabbergasted to a degree at how quickly fans have turned. And if they come out and go 3-and-out on the opening drive, Roddy, you don't want to be in that venue. It's going to be awful. They'll be pouring down booze out of the upper deck of Death Valley until something successful happens.
Well, here's what I would say to Clemson fans that are listening. Don't be Miami fans. Don't be Florida State fans. Don't be Oklahoma fans booing your team. It does no good. Doesn't help. All it does is make you feel good. It's the most selfish thing a fan can do. Now, if a team is just absolutely brutal and you're going to fire the head coach in the pros, like, fine, boo away, like, whatever. But in college football, like, Dabo Swinney has earned the right to be 2-2 to start the season. He's brought you 2 national championships, 6 straight ACC championships, college football playoff appearances. He has taken this program to a place that not only has that program never been before, but very few programs in the sport have been before. Not only that, but he has done it at a time that it's as difficult as any to do. Don't let Alabama fool you. Don't let Ohio State fool you. Ohio State is essentially a foolproof job. Like, Ohio State, in terms of jobs in the entire country, like, that is the one that they've really never been bad. Like, they've never had an extended period of being bad that didn't have something to do with sanctions or something ridiculous happening. Alabama's got all the resources in the world. Every program in the country that's not one of the absolute top tier blue bloods, and even some of those, wishes they were Clemson, because you built it without the tradition of a million national championships, without a million Heisman Trophy winners. Dabo Swinney has built that. So Clemson fans, do not turn on, like, he didn't forget how to coach between 2020 and 2021. He's still got a extremely talented quarterback who, to be quite honest, might be a little fragile right now. So the Boo Birds are not what you want to see. So Clemson fans, stand behind your team, cheer for your team. Doesn't matter if they go 3-and-out on the first possession or fall behind 21-0. Like, stick with them, because number one, the fact that you feel entitled to boo at the potential of a 2-3 start is purely because of Dabo Swinney. And two, Dabo Swinney is good enough to turn it around. So I just, you don't want to lose perspective on where this program is.
Yeah.
And you don't want to flip just because you're unhappy that this team has struggled out of the gate. Alabama has spoiled us with not allowing other teams to have a year where they struggle out of the gate. There's still time to figure it out.
Roddy Jones, again, Sirius XM and the ACC network. All right, Roddy, let's talk a little bit about some other teams in the league. And you mentioned Florida State. They're 0-4. I wouldn't say that this year was supposed to be a turnaround year, but it kind of had some promise out of the gates with the way they played against Notre Dame. And then the Jacksonville State thing happens, and now they're 0-4. I mean, there's so much pressure to win at that job because of what Bobby Bowden did, and then Jimbo Fisher picking up a championship as well in 2013. I mean, what do you think about the Seminoles at this point? And, I heard somebody say the other day, they said, man, I think Mike Norvell could be out at the end of this year if the donors can get the money together. I'm floored. I mean, is that what people really think?
I don't think so. And here's why. I think money is a massive, massive hurdle to clear there. If they can get the money cleared, because you're still paying Willie Taggart $20 million. You got to buy out Mike Norvell. Then you got to buy out the coach that you're going to get and pay all of his staff to come in. It's a lot. It's a lot of money. And you will then have another transition recruiting class in that program. And how many transition classes can you have if you're trying to build a program? It's the same thing I'm saying to Miami fans who are like, fire Manny Diaz. And it's like, and then what? Then you're going to bring a guy in with a roster that has holes, expect him to have a transition class, and then maybe give him one full recruiting class and look at him and be like, where are the results? Like, culturally, you cannot have a program that's doing that. So with both Florida State and Miami, what I would preach to their fans is patience. Both of those guys are recruiting at a rate, recruiting at a clip better than their predecessors. Give them 4 years. Give them 4 recruiting classes to get guys in. And if you don't think they're the guy after that, at least they leave the cupboard stocked for the guy that's going to replace them. So at least you're setting that guy up for success. But you can't do that if you're constantly churning through coaches. Miami fans are the worst at it too. Like Manny Diaz comes in and they're like, "Oh, he should win in year one," and he goes 6-7. And like, what's going on? Let's fire him now. And just because he was the coach, like he was the coach at Temple, or he was the qualified job that he was getting, the job that he was qualified to
right,
get
right.
at Temple. And it's like, look, you're not going to get Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal is going to want $7 or $8 million a year. You going to pay that? You're going to buy out Manny Diaz, go pay the massive buyout for Mario Cristobal, and then pay him $7 million a year. And by the way, you're going to need a pool of money for his assistants. It's probably going to be like 5. Like, no, you're not going to shell out that money. You're not doing it with Manny Diaz. So if you're not getting Cristobal for that, you're probably not getting Billy Napier because he's going to get one of those jobs. You're definitely not getting Luke Fickell because all he's got to do is he's got a Big 12 job and all he's got to do is wait for Ohio State to come open. So there's just so many things, so many places that people are delusional. And I think the same case of Florida State. Who's going to go coach at Florida State when you fired one guy after 2 years and the second guy in his second year? Like, no coach is going to go there with that mess of a roster and that mess of an infrastructure that they're trying to rebuild when you're churning through coaches like that. So the fans may be upset, but the best thing is patience. So that at least if this guy isn't it for you, he's at least leaving you with a talented enough roster where the next guy can have success.
Yeah, here's my example I gave, and it's not a great one to a degree, is Chad Morris, who had, minimal success at SMU, no success at Arkansas. But 2 years after he leaves, his program's pretty much got all his players in, and Sonny Dykes wins 10 wins at SMU. A couple of years after he leaves Arkansas, you got the Razorbacks in the top 10, and everybody's going, man, look at this program. But he didn't really have time there at Arkansas to turn over Bielema's system. And now I look at it and I go, man, Sam Pittman's getting it done. But a lot of those dudes, you know who recruited him? It was Chad Morris. So I don't know, man. You got to give these coaches some time. Microwave mentality, Roddy. Appreciate you, buddy. Always great catching up with you on a Wednesday, and look forward to having you back on next week, my man.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it a lot, and always good to chat.
Roddy Jones again here on the show that shakes the Southland. All right, Tiger fans, let's hit a quick break. We'll come back. Big games going on in the world of college